up, everybody? Welcome back to the Power and Community Podcast brought to you by Art of Me. We are a nonprofit organization that works with young people to share their stories and perspectives through writing, art, and film. Welcome back, everyone. It's Chanda here, and I'm back with another awesome filmmaker. We're going to talk all the things filmmaking, all the things creating, just existing and being. Today we have Malcolm Lott. Welcome to the podcast, Malcolm Lott.
Hey, Chanda, thank you for having me today.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. I'm really excited to start to talk to you about everything that kind of goes on in your mind when you're doing filmmaking and just being a creative. Malcolm is, from what I know, a DP, a film photographer, and I'm missing one other thing.
You can add a little bit of director in there. I do directing as well, editing, the whole shebang, everything from A to Z.
Okay, I feel like I was missing something. I was looking at your Instagram profile. I have to stalk before I do these interviews, and I'm like, okay, let me do my research. Let me see what this person has out, so that when I ask these questions, it's on par. I feel like with interviews, that's so important to really get grounded in what the person already has out there. So I was definitely stalking your Instagram yesterday. But yeah, I'm so excited to have you on the podcast. Let's just jump right in. Everyone that's listening, you know that our podcast is about power and community. So that's mainly what our conversation will be focusing on today. How can we use our art and our creative process and just who we are to bring communities together and to empower them for change and resources? Malcolm, tell us a little bit about yourself. Who are you? What do you do? And when did you know film was something you wanted to do?
Ooh, well, you got me backtracking. We might be on this podcast all day, but I'll try to be brief and to the point. So my name is Malcolm Lott. I'm from Virginia Beach, Virginia, 757. A little bit about myself. Like I said, I love everything film. I love media. I love content creation. I love photography as well. I actually got to shoot right after this, so got to get how you live it. Let's see. When I started realizing film was my passion, honestly, I'm gonna pay a lot of homage to my mom, because if it wasn't for her, I honestly wouldn't have found my passion for it. Growing up, I always loved watching TV. Like TV was my thing. Disney Channel, Cartoon Network, all those channels. I was just glued to the screen. But once I got to high school, I was kind of in that position for my life, just trying to figure out, who I was gonna be in this world and what I was gonna do once I got out of high school. And my mom, she was just like, there was this, in Virginia, we have like these trade schools, like high schools. You can kind of like go and learn like trades in the world that you can end up doing once you get out of high school. And when she took me over to this place, they had a TV production and communications. And she was like, oh, that looks interesting over there. And like, we're going to check it out. My stubborn self back then was like, nah, I'm not really trying to do all that. So, I don't want to do that. Went in there, like I said, checked out. It was cool. She was like, oh, so you're going to apply? I said, no, I'm not. She was like, you are? I said, okay, I'm going to apply, but I'm not going to get in. I remember I was sitting in high school. I got a phone call during class. I had to step out of class real quick. And they called. They were like, is this Malcolm Lott? Yeah, you've been accepted, blah, blah, blah. I'm back in my head like, oh my gosh. I'm like, all right. So basically, so the following year I started that program. And I think that's honestly when my life started changing. I think that's when I was being immersed in that realm of TV and kind of started enlightening myself and like me developing myself as an artist. I didn't realize who I was back then yet, but I was growing into that throughout the years. And so honestly, that's where it all began. And then from there, I just kind of expounded on it. I kind of was more just from from late high school to like college, I was more of like a videographer rather than a filmmaker. It wasn't until I met you, Chanda, at NPF, that's when I really kind of tapped more into the filmmaking aspect. And then from there, just kind of focused more on that. So.
I'm glad you mentioned NPF. That's where I'm getting a lot of my film people from. A lot of these people on the podcast is the homies. And we definitely are a film family, the Nate Parker Film Foundation. Definitely something I would say, if you're a person of color, especially of African descent, that would love to express yourself through film and talk about your culture, that's definitely something you should look into. But yes, Brianna was on the podcast. We have a couple more people that are coming on, and Malcolm was also part of that wonderful experience, which is where I met him. So yeah, definitely check into that for those of you who are listening in. But also what I love about what you just said, Malcolm, was that you didn't know in the beginning. And I think a lot of the times we all like have these standards for ourselves of like, we should know and we should have it already figured out. And you didn't know that that was going to be something that you wanted to do. You just like enjoyed television, you enjoyed TV, like it was a fun pastime for you. And now it's like a whole career for you. So I like that part of like, just, I think I did that when I applied to NPF. My friend like hounded me for 2 years and I was like, no, like I'm not going to get into that. Do you hear how that program sounds? Like what? I don't even have any background really in film that much to do it. And then I applied and I got in. And so it's funny like how life takes you down those different paths, where maybe you planned a certain thing and then it turns out to be different. But I don't know, I've seen your work, and to see that you just kind of happened upon this this thing is kind of like, it definitely gives me like gifted vibes, like this is like the path that you're supposed to be taking. So I honestly think that's really cool, that's how you happened upon, this creative journey. I know you recently released a short called Focused. I was able to check that out. I loved it. Definitely resonate with it at 26 years old. What was the goal of this short? What message did you want to share when creating it? And did you face any challenges while shooting this short yourself?
Focused. I made that. I've in my years of content creation, this filmmaking, I've learned the best stories you can tell, the ones that are more personal, that hit more close to home. And with everything that happened with the pandemic, and kind of like put me in a position of trying to rediscover who I was as an artist. So currently, right now, I am obtaining my master's in fine arts and film and television with a concentration in directing at Regent University. So that was during that time while I'm getting my master's. It was just a project that I wanted to, well, of course it was partially for school, but I also wanted to make it more personal in my sense of like, I directed it more than I was directing and starring in it. So I was kind of playing both realms of film, but I just wanted to make that project just something personal to myself. I just put it out there. I really honestly didn't care who saw it. If you saw it and you loved it, great. If you didn't, that's cool. That's fine, whatever. But I'm at that point as an artist, like I'm not worried about the views or the likes. I'm concerned about what impact I made by making this. And so I just want to focus just to kind of represent, the phases that we go through in life. And, literally each chapter of life, it's something different. And I think this part of my life is more so focused on growing to who God called me to be and fulfilling out the purpose that he has for my life. And so I made that film just to kind of be more in a more vulnerable state than a more successful state. Now, I feel like people always want to be viewed as dominant and powerful, but they don't also necessarily see you vulnerable at this time. Vulnerability is not weakness, it's transparency, it's clarity, and it allows people to see both aspects of who you are versus just always seeing you at your best and at your highest and at your peak. So I just wanted that film just to show, like, we're all going through different things, we all are experiencing different things, but at the end of the day, the goal is still there. It's right in front of us. We start to keep working and growing towards those things. And so yeah.
Woo, come on, Black man. I love it. I love it. Everything you said. You said so many gems. And I did want to ask you to let us know what difficulties you had with that project. But before that, so many great things you said, just even about I didn't do it for likes and follows. And I feel like we live in such a time where that is so the focus. But I feel like we're all starting to get to a point where we're rising above that. Like we're able to have this clear vision where it's like, that's not even it. Like we've seen what that gets you. And I think it honestly reminded me of something that Nate talked about on the podcast. If you haven't checked out that episode with Nate Parker, you guys totally should. So many great gems. But he talked about being more focused, not on the critics and not on the awards, but what you leave behind for somebody who will watch it, be inspired, and continue on that message. That's what's important. Like, what is our art rooted in? Are we laying a foundation where other people can grow and change and experience, all for God purpose, all that. That's me. So I love to hear you focused on that. And then also, I think even you talking about getting your master's, I feel like was confirmation for me, because I'm thinking about going to get my master's in fiction. but it's also an MFA in fine arts. So thinking about possibly teaching that. I mean, I might look into like videography and stuff, but I never really thought about that. I was more so like, because I'm writing my first novel right now. So I was like, I should just go to school for my master's. That would be nice to be able to do both of those things right alongside each other. But just even furthering your education, I think is such a it's so taboo now, right? Because everybody's like student loans and you shouldn't do that. Like a lot of people are like, don't do that. But like when you know what you want to do, I don't think there's anything wrong with pursuing that higher education because it creates connections. It allows you to be in spaces that maybe you wouldn't have been in before, and then allows you to what is that called? Connect. I like to say probably connect more than make like create references and stuff because it's like more of a connection and actually having friends in a tribe is kind of more important to me. But yeah, allowing you to do those things by pursuing higher education. So anyway, so many gems. So I wanted to touch on those things, but also like when you were creating focus, did you run into any difficulties, even if they were small?
I feel like making. I think this is because it was more of a passion project, and I wasn't necessarily worrying about it being perfect. You know what I'm saying? It was at the time I was taking a lot of cinematography class, and we were just creating stories, and I just didn't care about it being perfect. I really didn't. I just was more focused on what you got out of it, per se. I had an idea. Like I said, I storyboarded, I drafted, I conceptualized, excuse me, the shots that I wanted to get. But honestly, working with one of my classmates, he was cam op, and I was like, honestly, if you see something you like, I was like, hey, let's do the take. Like he was getting random B-roll shots and I didn't even know he was recording the camera. And I was like, yo, I like this. This is tough. Yeah, let's use that. Mom edit. I'm like, oh, I didn't know he was recording that. Like it was cool. So I feel like those are those projects that you appreciate more because it's not necessarily conceptualized 100% just feels like, no, we're getting this shot, we're getting that shot, we're getting that shot. It's honestly just about just going with the flow and whatever comes out, whatever creativity comes out of that, let's use that. Let's conceptualize from that. So there wasn't any limited I feel like the only biggest thing was just space and time because I had to get that done relatively quickly, and then I was also trying to post it on social media. So those I'm used to working in tight crunches anyway, so that wasn't necessarily a limitation. That's honestly I work well under pressure, so that wasn't a big issue for me. I think also when you're kind of working by yourself too, because some of the shots I did shoot were by myself. So like when I was at home, like the intro, the beginning of the scenes, those are all shot by myself. I had the tripod, like the very first shot. I don't know if you're gonna play this or not, or let this be seen to the viewers, but the first shot is literally just me and my computer, like me walking into my room. But it's actually shot to my closet door, and I had it shot like that because I wanted you to see how isolated I was in my environment because that was symbolic of the time I went through in COVID, how isolated I felt a lot of times. I wanted you to see me from a distance, but like you were there, but you were kind of watching me. You weren't necessarily involved in what I was doing. And then throughout time, you kind of it was more being told in my mind because it was supposed to be a dream. It's supposed to be dreamlike. So you kind of went into my mind and you came back into the reality, and that was me moving forward. So there was really no limitations. Like I said, I loved it. I actually had a project that came after that if we had time to talk about, I'd love to talk about that one too, just as far as what that project meant to me as well. So
Hey, I have time as long as you have time. So that's fine. We could definitely get into what that project is about. But I love how you talked about how this film, like, yeah, it had little minor hiccups, but because it was a passion project for you, you didn't like focus too hard on it. Cause honestly, sometimes that's what hinders us when we're like, so like, I have to plan this out. It has to be, great, like to a T. Sometimes that stops us from moving forward with actually progressing on a project. And I actually did an at-home thing where I shot myself with my own camera too, and I did a poetry piece narrative called Apartment 11. It's a short as well, and it's just talking about the hectic stuff that I went through living in this apartment. But I just did it that day. Like I was just like, I'm just gonna turn on my camera. I'm about to get a whole bunch of personal shots of myself. And trust me, this is not even to like down myself, but it don't look as great as Malcolm's stuff. So definitely check out Malcolm's stuff. I'm still learning, but I just shot with like my Canon M3, and it has an 18 to 55 millimeter lens. So it's not even, what I'm saying, nothing crazy. But I just did those shots myself. And then I was like, I'm just gonna write a poem. And I did play some audio over it. And I just did it, guys. It wasn't The audio wasn't perfect. It was probably not good at all, but I really love that video. And when I go back and watch it, I'm like, this is something I just did out of passion. It's something I did out of expressing myself. So our students and our teachers listening in, that's something that if I could drive home, and I think Malcolm said it too, when you don't focus so much on what it will look like and you just do it, it has the potential to be something amazing. So, I mean, thanks, Malcolm, for just that perspective, because I think that's important for creatives. Don't always be so focused on planning that you do not execute, which can cause your own, like another form of creative depression. When you don't finish, it just sucks. So sometimes it's better to just jump in and do it, to hit up the homies and just be like, I want to do this thing. Can you come over for a couple hours and help me get some shots, and just get it done? Speaking of like just doing, can you talk to us about your personal process when you come up with an idea for a short or a project?
Yeah, of course. So I'll kind of touch into the more recent project I've done. So that one was called Never Stop Climbing. It was kind of more along a short film slash kind of like a in quotation marks Nike commercial type look. Cause I always love watching like sports commercials because they always get me so amped and so pumped. Um, I created that because partially what I kind of want to do long term is get into like commercial filmmaking, work with brands and stuff like that. But I made that also too because I wanted it to have a centralized theme of just, never stop climbing. So honestly, it kind of really just starts with the what do you want this to say? You know, when you make content, it has to have a message behind it. I mean, it's different for like I guess to say like TikTok users, folks just make content just to make content. It doesn't have any centralized message. I'm not discrediting anybody who uses TikTok. I'm still trying to work on getting there myself, but I'm more Instagram and Twitter. But it just starts with a message. Like, what do you want to convey to your audience? And it's honestly just about knowing your target audience. Like, who do you want this to reach out to, and who do you want this to grasp this the most? And it's honestly, you make it applicable to anybody. That's the thing about storytelling. You just really gotta have to find something that's relatable that everyone can relate to. That's how you attract those people, because people will see that people can relate to it. Because if it's too far fetched and it's too far left, then people won't get it because it's out of their reach to understand. So, and honestly, like I said, for me, really, honestly, just starts with ideas. I get a lot of my inspo from just watching, just Netflix, Hulu, like stuff like that. I just see stuff, or like, I'm just living my life, or just living my life. Like I might come across like an encounter with somebody, and I'm like, it might have been like a really good interaction, or it might have been a bad interaction. But even for me, I'm thinking about it kind of like in the grand scheme of things, like, how could I put this? If I could tell a story about this, how would I tell it? So honestly, like, I hope that answers your question. I thought I got a little off topic, but
No. I think you definitely answered it. You said your process is taking the things that you experience in life and using those to inspire your work, which I think is great advice, because sometimes we reach so hard to convey this message when it's like, you are more connected to what you just experienced yesterday, and it will be more fluid. And yes, you can like try to tackle these big conversations and stuff, but sometimes those are very hard to display on camera versus something that you actually experienced, talked to, and felt in a moment. And I honestly, when I think of storytelling, I would suggest that too. Let it be something that you know about, because those become the better stories than things that you can't really grasp that time. Sometimes though, I can write from other perspectives, but I wouldn't say they're necessarily great writing, because I haven't like fully walked through that experience that I'm trying to portray. And sometimes people are like, that's still dope. Like, I think it's a dope story, but I'm like, I would imagine had I like actually physically been there and been doing, it would have been definitely even better than it is. But I think you're giving sound advice to our aspiring filmmakers who are hopefully listening in. Like, don't try so hard for a story. Just look around at your friends and your family and yourself and the things that you've gone through, because honestly, those are the stories that people will connect with. And I did see the commercial that, or the mini like ad, um sorry, I lost my thought. I did see the mini ad. I would say it was like an ad vibe, but was that not what you were going for with tell us the title again?
it's called Never Stop Climbing. It was honestly 50-50. I wanted it to kind of be both. It looks along the lines of a short film, but when you see like a longer like commercial, like maybe Nike might put something out, or like Adidas or stuff like that, they tend to like drag their commercials out, or like you see them on YouTube, they're a little bit longer because they kind of want to have a little bit of like a little storyline to it. So that was honestly like the goal. It was supposed to be both. So I was like in a line of commercial, but also in the lines of short film as well.
Okay, I definitely got both of those vibes. Never stop climbing. I think it more so became like had a little bit of just a pinch of Nike because of the words. But I definitely think the storyline itself is just original. And I like motivational things like you're saying, sometimes when you watch something, it really does give you that push. And so again, we're talking about creating things to empower communities, to give people resources. And even though the what Malcolm filmed was a short, it's like really spicy, y'all. Like it's something that can like hit you immediately. And at the end, we'll show you how to connect with Malcolm so that you can check out some of the things that he's created. Let's move forward. So let's talk about your setup and try to break it down for us noobs who don't really understand equipment. But what kind of camera or cameras do you have? What kind of lenses do you have? What do you use to edit? And lastly, what do you recommend for beginner filmmakers?
Whew, oh man, it's I'm gonna tell you the biggest thing about filmmaking, it's a marathon, not a sprint. So I did not start shooting on the quality that I had before. I think my first camera was my iPhone, I think it was my iPhone 7 back in college. And then my dad purchased my first camera for me. And from there, I started just, I was just recording videos. I was just making videos with that. Trying to get into more of that cinematic look. And then from there, my dad, he definitely does a lot of sponsoring as far as my equipment. He definitely was the one to, can tell me get upgrades. So then he got me a Fujifilm X-T2. I was making stuff with that. That was kind of more along like a video camera rather than like a film camera. Then he gave me the X-T3 because, he does photography as well. So when he gets new stuff, he gives me the other stuff. And I'm like, oh, I'll take that. So I'll use that. But for me, I wanted my first cinema camera to actually be something I invested in personally. So now I'm currently shooting with the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema 4K. I tremendously love that camera. If you are in the budget range to get that, I think it's only like $1,300. I definitely think that's a great starter camera. I think people don't understand like the amount of power that camera has. Like I think folks think they need to get Reds, which can range from $20,000 to $50,000. You don't need that look. And then like the industry is changing so much. Like there's other brands like I know there's like Zcam. Who else? And I mean even Sony, you can do a lot with Sony as well too. Sony's a great camera, like, but it's not gonna hit the bank as much as buying a Red or getting an Area Alexa, which is way far fetched down the road of extreme levels of filmmaking and budgeting and things of that nature. But I love that camera. That's definitely going to be one of my running gun cameras. I plan on getting another one soon. Not necessarily know how soon, but just for that Blackmagic will probably become my B cam. Just if I'm doing interviews, like cinematic interviews, stuff like that. But I feel like with filmmaking, I feel like folks feel like they need to have the top dollar to make quality, and it's honestly quality over quantity. So it's not about what you have, it's about how you use it. And I was making really dope stuff, and I was shooting just on a Nikon, and I was just only in 1080. I couldn't even, like, I was calling myself 4K Malcolm. Everyone thought I was shooting in 4K. I wasn't. I was shooting in 1080, but I knew how to match that look though. I knew how to make it look like that. I knew how to make it look like it was something that was higher quality, higher end. And that's the thing, is like folks aren't gonna, only people that are really looking at the quality are people like myself and you, Chanda. Like we're looking at like, oh, I think they shut down about 1080, 24 frames per second, something like that. Like regular people aren't thinking that. I'm the only we're the people that's thinking that. So that's what I'm saying. If you can do so much, you can do a lot with an iPhone. I don't think people understand the power and the generation that they're in when it comes to technology. It's just that you have so many resources in front of you that you can honestly make such high-end stuff. Like it's crazy. I honestly just bought another camera, not a big camera, but something much smaller. I actually have it right here. I'm gonna see if I can unscrew this because I was trying to use this to record. So I just bought this. I'm pretty sure we're recording. This is the DJI Osmo Pocket 2. I just bought this because originally I wanted to get a GoPro, but I realized I liked this because it was much more smaller and convenient to use. I can really just take this out anywhere and folks aren't really gonna be paying attention to what I'm doing. And it shoots in 4K, it shoots in 1080, like, and it's really good. I just got it yesterday, so I'm fully being able to test it out. I'm probably gonna test it out sometime next week just to see what it can really do. But like I said, that only ran me like $300. So at the end of it, like, you're getting 4K, you're getting 1080, you're getting high end quality, and it's not hurting your bank. I think sometimes also the biggest thing I want to say to everyone too that's listening is that also, if you want to get results, you're gonna have to spend. Broke money doesn't make money. So if you want to be great, sometimes you are gonna have to make investments, and don't necessarily view that investment as like, oh, I'm out back because I bought that. No, you bought it so that you can get a return on your investment. And that was for me stepping and getting that Black Magic was like, I'm gonna get a return on investment because in due time, the things I'll be making will compensate the amount of money I spent on that for.
Lots of great things this man has just said, and I will talk about them with you now. Firstly, like, just in the beginning, I think you were in a sweet spot to have a father who's already artistic. So everybody, if you have family members or friends who are already like in the industry doing something, it's probably good to, see if they could pass you down those things that they aren't using if they're not going to sell them. So just keeping that in mind, but also just mainly your point of like, I mean, it goes back to even in the creative process, not feeling like you got to do all this planning to make something good, but it's the same with the equipment. Like, don't feel like you have to have all of these nice things to create something good. And I've even felt that way sometimes, like, well, I shouldn't invest in this because I need to just save for this huge expensive thing. But even just hearing that camera that you have, I've seen it on your page, that thing looks dope. And it's only $1,300. What? And I'm like, when I'm looking at cameras, sometimes I'm looking and I'm like, why is this lens $5,000? Like, I cannot afford this lens. And actually my camera recently broke. So I'm actually I'm looking for the next thing that I will get into. So I'm definitely going to check out your camera. But I also have the iPhone 12 Pro Max, however you say that. And I was like, I should probably like play around with that a little bit longer before graduating to something else, just so I can learn. So like you said, you used your iPhone. And I think everybody's gotten to the point where they realize that you can use your phone, but don't take for granted these things that we just pop in our pockets. Like, you can honestly get some really, like, when I use this phone to do little stuff, and I promise, like, my mind is still learning like camera stuff. I'm more of a writer vibe. So like this camera stuff, I'm still learning. And I'm like so surprised with what this thing can do sometimes, even with like depth of field and stuff. I'm like, dude, this looks so nice. But my friend had to show me some of those things because I didn't know. So also just not being afraid to ask people who are already well versed. So now I'm gonna annoy you, Malcolm, just so you know, because I feel like you know things. So I'm gonna just be asking you. But I think you said a lot of great things of just not waiting to have the most expensive things. And even just, I mean, that little $300 thing that you just showed, I mean, obviously in my head, I'm like, I'm gonna just get a GoPro because that's what everybody's saying get. But finding those little nuggets while you're shopping, and I'm gonna figure out what you called it, and I'll put it I'll put it down so that people can check it out if they want to check out this camera pocket thing he has. But yeah, not breaking the bank to do something amazing, I think, is so important. So I also wanted to talk to you about like your favorite filmographers or directors. Do you have any that you would like to work alongside in the future? And just tell us what of their works really inspire you and maybe make you reflect on your own work, or maybe make you aspire to create something similar or better. Yeah, talk to us about that.
So it would kind of be cliche of me to just say, oh, just the usual, like Spike Lee, Ryan Coogler. But I think for me and my journey, since I'm trying to be more around the cinematographer DP, I kind of really want to work more under the lines of the directors of photography who really kind of conceptualize the looks for the film. Those people necessarily don't get as much attribution as the director of the film, but they play a significant role and why that film looks the way it does and why those shots happen for those specific reasons, and them being able just to get those shots, like, they're vital. They're extremely vital. I would say for me, I would say African American wise, of course, Spike Lee. Like I said, I think I love every single Spike Lee movie he's put out, as well as I know his director, photographer. I can't remember his name at the time, but their ideas for certain looks and for certain messages that they you utilize through camera language is something I definitely admire. I'm trying to think of so many else right now. Of course, I'm a big Spielberg fan. I love his films. I think the message and the things that he says through him is very powerful and tremendous. I'm trying to think, is there anybody else at the top of my head right now that I can think of? Because I'm kind of mad at myself right now because I'm really in school right now, literally studying like foreign filmmakers. So like my professor has me such on like a foreign vibe right now. I'm trying to come back to the American ones, and it's just like, oh, let me come back. I'm trying to remember who made stuff in America, but I definitely would love to work with Nate on a project again. Like it's been a while. But if I had the opportunity, I definitely would love to hop on another project in the near future. So that would be great too. I love Nate. I love how the things he's trying to achieve with filmmaking. Also one of my mentors from Nate Parker Foundation, Kai. I love Kai. I love his work and things he's doing. So definitely, of course, if those opportunities ever came across again, I definitely would love to be able to hop back on those projects again for good old times.
Share with do you have some of the foreign filmmakers that you're like absolutely obsessed with right now that you can remember?
So these people, I'm not gonna hold you, are kind of old. They are kind of old because they're more of older films than I'm watching. I think one that's recent that he's made stuff. I think the recent film he did was back in like 2012 that I was actually just watching. But he's a Chinese filmmaker. His name is Zhang Yimou. Zhang Yimou, if I pronounced that correctly. If I did, I'm so sorry. If he was ever here this one day. Yeah, it was basically I was watching a couple films that he made. I think one had Jet Li in it, and another one was called The Flowers of War, and it was just basically kind of like a historical biopic on the Nanjing massacre. I think 1937. So it's just kind of like that story. I really was just watching. I was watching that because I had to write a paper about it, and I really loved his direction of filmmaking because he definitely loves utilizing color in his film, specific characters that kind of have a little bit more importance to the story. And I definitely loved the way he like that film because that movie was like three genres in one. It was like a war movie. It was a love story. It was a tragedy. It was so much going on, but I loved it, and I just loved the gritty look of it, the good and the bad of it. So that was just like it's a foreign film because I know it debuted in China, but it's kind of American because it's like American / Chinese because they're speaking in Chinese and there's an American that's speaking in English and he's speaking in Chinese. So it's kind of going back and forth, but it was definitely a good movie. I definitely loved it.
Yeah, I think some like honestly, I did take a little one I think I did an intro to film and then something else when I was in college because I minored in communication. But the foreign films are, I mean, they're top tier. Like honestly, they should teach them a lot more outside of college when we're learning about stuff. But also my favorite foreign film has to be Run Lola Run, I think it's called. That thing, I don't know why I love that movie. Well, yes, I do. It's the pictures that they take in between the intense running scenes. I don't know. And then the like fusion of animation with like regular cinematography. I just think that it's probably cliche. A lot of people probably love that movie Run Lola Run, but I had never seen anything like that before. I thought it was very unique in the way that movie was expressed. And I thought the storyline wasn't bad either, with her repeating the same thing and trying to get different results. So moving forward, how do you deal with comparison in the industry? So what I mean by that is like social media always have some of us like in our heads too much, and we see what other people have and we don't realize it's a highlight reel, right? It's not the whole journey to how they got to where they got. And I think I struggle with this as a filmmaker. I think people in general, we in life struggle with it, even if you're looking at like other families because you want a family, or you have a financial goal that somebody else has already surpassed. You kind of compare yourself, and in the filmmaking industry, we're all trying to achieve great things, and some people get there quote unquote faster than others. How do you manage your mental health and still stay passionate about creating film?
I'm gonna be transparent. You gotta stay in your lane. You really do. Again, I said it earlier. It's a marathon, not a sprint. My roommate in college, my best friend, he used to tell me all the time. It's a marathon. You're gonna keep running. Some people get there a little. Some people are they necessarily didn't get a. They're not necessarily there yet. They're just a little bit ahead of you in the race. doesn't mean you're behind. That means you're, because the race, I'll say, if anybody that's seen a long distance race or like the Olympics, you see that you can be in dead last and somehow they in fifth place. Like, you're gonna move faster at different paces. Everyone's pace is gonna be different. So it really comes back to, you have to stay in your lane. You have to know your place, and you have to also focus on what you're doing. And I think also at the time too, you honestly have to be more. You have to be still cheer for them when they're getting to those places, but also stay hungry and diligent in yourself, because when you let the spirit of like comparison like dwindle inside of you, it kind of makes you feel less than. It makes you feel insecure. You're gonna start feeling small. Like I said, I got friends that are in LA. I got people in New York. I got I know Shamar in New York. I got some friends I went to school with that work in Atlanta right now, and everyone's like, you know, come to ATL, or come to LA, come to NY. I think the journey for me is like, what's gonna be for me is gonna be for me. That was for you. That's for you. And I think we feel like, and I was watching like I said, I'm a religious man, so I was watching Transformation Church, and pastor was just like, I don't know why everyone from the age of 18 to 23 feels like they're called to go to LA or New York. I really sat down, I'm like, wow, that used to be me at one point in time. But here I am. I'm in Virginia. I'm doing my thing. But the thing is, the reason why I'm extremely grateful that I'm in VA right now is because I kind of like have created a lane for my own. Because I think that's just one thing I learned about myself and my personality, is that I don't follow crowds. I make my own. Like, I don't even make my own crowd. I chart my own path, and people follow from that. So like, I'm not here to go be like everyone else. I'm here to create what's different than what everyone else is used to seeing, per se. So wherever anyone is, whether you are in the country, if you're in Mississippi, if you're in Mississippi, or you in some place that's rural, or you're in the big city, like, don't feel like you're limited to where you are, because you have to make your own opportunities for yourself, because you always feel like you got to go move someplace else. Like, what happens when you get there? Because what's for you will be for you. Just because you think that's the best place it needs to be doesn't mean that's the plan for your. Doesn't mean that's the plan for your life. And so, for me and my mental health, I just always have to remember and reassure myself that my destination is my destination, and that what will be for me will be for me. And I honestly feel like wherever the path takes me down, I'm gonna appreciate, I'm gonna value that as well, because it's my life to live, and I can't live my life trying to please other people, look successful to other people. And I saw this one post on Instagram. It was crazy that Kanye West had quoted this. I'm like, this man, out of all people, he was like, our generation is so focused on looking successful versus actually being successful. And I saw that, I was just like, dang, that is great. That's facts. That's facts. Social media. I think people have taken it far left. And I used to say this to a lot of people, like, social media for me sometimes is not fun anymore. It's not fun. It's not how it was when I first got on in 8th grade, trying to get 300 followers, and, you know, posting all these outlandish filters on my page, just trying to look cool. It was fun back then. Now it's honestly like a competition to see who looks like they have the better life. And like, I'm like, that's not fun. That's draining. Like, that's why honestly my Instagram page is more so for promoting my work and let my work be seen. And it's not for me to look at anybody and say, I'm better than you. It's not. I'm just trying to let my God-given ability have a platform where it can be seen. So honestly, for anybody, you really got to just stay in your lane. You really have to just do you, really do you, and don't let anybody else try to say or tell you what is best for you in your life. They can't do that. You have to tell. That's for you.
I mean, you said it all. Nothing else really needs to be said. I'm just in agreement of staying in your lane, and que sera, as that saying says, what will be. And I think I had to learn that even with NPF. I love everybody there, even people I haven't met yet. And I'm always like, if you see me, you follow me on the gram, I'm always under like, hey, y'all, congratulations. Like, you know, because I never want to have a spirit of jealousy on me. I never want to foster anything nasty, because I don't know what that person, again, like I said before, what they walk through to get to where they are at. And it could just be their quote unquote time. And it's not a comparison thing where I have to be like, I'm not doing enough. I'm not. It's like you said, even moving to these different cities, like people were telling me to go to LA and stuff too. And I think a lot of our friends are just enjoying themselves down there. And so they're of course like, come on, come down here. Like, come, but no, we don't all have to be there to be successful. And sometimes I even look at my city where I'm at. I live in Cleveland, Ohio, and I'm like, what happens when we all leave to go to Atlanta and LA? What happens to the art here? What happens to the communities? This this podcast is about power and community. And sometimes I'm like, I do feel a little tug to stay more rooted here so that when I create something, my city can benefit, because it's just a lot of crazy things that happen here, that we have so many talented people. And if I can assist with that, then we can make a move that will draw, just comfort and resources and whatever to the people who need it here, just by putting film together. So again, it's about path. And I think it's so much more bigger than just moving to LA or Atlanta. It's like purpose. Like you kept talking about purpose. Like if my purpose is in Cleveland, I do not benefit by leaving and going and staying there for 10 years in another city. And then here just does not get the fruit that I am. Like LA has so much fruit, God bless them. But what about the places where you're at? Where can you produce fruit for the people there? Film is great, but it's not about, again, we said it's not about the accolades and the critics and the all of those things. It's about putting a foundation so that other people can step up on that and excel in life, because film is powerful and it can be used to change so many movements and reflect on so many things that can spark elevation in other aspects of life. And so it is truly about purpose, 110%. And I kind of want to go back to technical really quickly. You talked about filming yourself in some of your shorts. How do you do that without assistance? Any tips for somebody who wants to self-film themselves, maybe just for a couple scenes? Because I think you can't, I don't know, can you shoot a whole movie yourself? I don't know, can you answer that for us?
If you're trying to shoot yourself, it's not impossible. A lot of times it's honestly really knowing about it. You have to know your camera, and you gotta know I'm about to get technical. You gotta know focal lengths. You gotta know where your camera's positioned. You gotta know how you're sitting in it. Like I'm sitting in a chair right now. Is the camera too high? Does it look too low? Also, having an external monitor that helps as well, because you can always flip it around. If it's 360, you can flip it around, see how you're positioned, readjust from there. And then sometimes you got to kind of pre-visualize it sometimes too. Like, if I'm trying to have this specific frame, I know I got to kind of have the camera about right here in this vicinity. It's honestly really knowing your equipment too. And that's my next thing. You got to know the equipment you're using. I think people just buy stuff and expect greatness to come out of it. No, you got to learn. My dad told me, he's like, you got to learn your camera as if like how you had to study school, like back in high school, how you had to study for these tests in college or things like that. You have to learn just like anything else, because how do you expect something magnificent to come out of it if you don't even know the camera settings? If you and I don't discredit anybody. Like I said, some people shoot on automatic. I feel like my professors in school said it too, like film wise, like you're not really a filmmaker, you're shooting auto. But there's benefits, and sometimes most people are gonna shoot a manual, because you gotta know your camera, you gotta know those settings to really start getting into the depths of what a filmmaker is. Because once you put that camera on manual, it's literally the knowledge that you have already in kind of like the creative spaces you put yourself in, allows yourself to kind of go out beyond those limits. And so slightly getting sidetracked, but going back to shooting yourself, yeah, it's not impossible. It's really not. It just takes, sometimes you got to do multiple takes, and that's okay too. Like I know for focus, I had to do a couple takes with shooting through the closet, because I looked back over the footage, I'm like, oh no, that's not right. Okay, no, that's not how I wanted it. Okay, I got to do it again a couple times to get it right. And it's not impossible. It's a little bit more tedious, but it's definitely possible. It's not. If you can shoot somebody, you can shoot yourself. Just think about how bloggers do it. They shoot themselves all the time. It's just honestly just theirs is a little bit more easier, more complex, but it's not impossible. It's not.
Yeah, I think also manual is like, also like if you want a certain lighting, if you want a certain look, then it is important to know your camera, because if the scene is sad, if the scene is happy, then the way that you position the camera and set it up can really tell that story. So I can see why they would say that. I can also see why it would kind of be a blow to somebody's self-esteem, but it also is like challenging that person to not just go in automatic, but really go for that story you want to tell by going ahead and being manual. Because why make the film if you're not going to use the camera to tell something very important? So, even though probably a lot of people just making stuff these days, but that's a whole different conversation. Um, So I have 3 more questions. Do you have time for that? Okay,
Oh yeah.
cool. Okay, cool. Who's ever editing this, please edit that part out. But I just wanted to make sure I wasn't taking up your time. Okay. Let's see. When working with others to create a film project, so we talked a lot about self-filming, but when working with others on a project, what's the most important skill you feel one should have? I guess specifically in your role as a filmographer, what's the important skill that you feel the person should have, and how do you know you have the right people for a positive work environment on a project?
Biggest skill, communication. Communication. We our this industry is all centered around communication, especially being a director. You got to be able to communicate your vision to the DP, to the camera operator, to audio, to so many different departments, because they need to. They're always going to come back to you as what do you want? How do you want this? And you have to be able to communicate that vision. Like with Focused, I have my boy Chris. He was slightly camera operating a little bit. I was like, I saw some angles he was trying to do. I'm like, that's not really what I'm going for. I'm kind of more so going for the ground when you're the pan in, just come a little bit lower, kind of scale your way up. So you kind of have to be intentional in what you want and make it more and make it known. Like you can't be timid about it. Like, oh, I kind of like that. Don't really like no. Say what it is, because I'm gonna say this industry ain't for the it's not for the weak minded, and nobody wants a director that doesn't know what they want. Like, I kind of want this, don't really want that. I really don't know. Like, no, it doesn't work like that, because one, this industry, time is money. First and foremost, folks are spending billions of dollars on the budget for film. We don't have time to be sitting here saying I don't know what I want. Like that's not it. You paying folks to be there for 12-hour days. And now with crew, so here's the thing: you can't take everybody up with you. That's the thing. Some people develop a little bit slower. And like I said, everyone's path is different. You kind of have to know from who you experience, what you've dealt with, what you can and can't, and what you can and won't tolerate. And you kind of have to go from there and kind of make that decision like, can this person be reliable? Can I rely on this person enough to get this project done? So that's something you kind of have to have a good sense of intuition within yourself to know what you need and what you don't need, because you have to think about the project at the end of the day. Because if you just bring on anybody, well, some people are lazy, some people don't move with a sense of urgency. That's taking up your time, and like, again, I said time is money. Now on these no budget projects, I mean, you can spend as long as you want on it, but when you put in a little bit of an investment into it, now we don't have time. We got to create something, has to come out of this. We can't just not be spending time and not creating nothing. So I mean, when you're picking people, it's good to have people that are like-minded. I wouldn't say just grab anybody that hasn't necessarily really know much about the industry or even know like basic stuff. Like I really want to grab them because it's not that they can't do it. It's just that they're necessarily on the same speed and the same level as how you're gonna move when you get into that creative mindset. So definitely find people that are really like-minded with you and really are serious, truly serious about the project, and take the project seriously, because some people just want to be there just to be there. Like they're here invested in the project because they want to be there.
100% agree. I definitely think you have to be confident. You can't be super sensitive if you're going to do this work, which I had to learn that about myself. And then you definitely want to work with people who are in alignment with the vision that you want to show. And they have to just be on game, like not playing games, but on game. Can you give our audience some practical advice about how to get into filmmaking, just like how to start? How can our audience stay dedicated to the stories they want to tell? I mean, and that can be from a technical standpoint with the cameras and stuff, which you already kind of talked about, but more so, I guess, emotionally, logically, what are some things somebody should think about when they want to start getting into filmmaking? Practical thoughts.
Right. No, that's a great question. You have to determine to yourself what type of filmmaker you want to be. You know, there's a difference between a videographer and a filmmaker. There's definitely a difference between the two. I see a lot of videographers. I think the biggest thing with VA is I see a lot more of those than I see actual filmmakers. And I think the film community definitely within Virginia is much smaller, and preferably in time it can get bigger. But I guess you have to determine what type of filmmaker you want to be. That's the route you want to choose. You got to think about what type of stories you want to tell. I mean, there's so many genres. You don't really see a lot of Black people making sci-fi films. You really don't. You really don't. I think that there's definitely a route right there that somebody can take. I mean, the most I've seen from someone in Black sci-fi was John Boyega in Star Wars when Episode 7 when he first came out. I remember, because Samuel L. Jackson was in the first couple Star Wars films, but that 10 plus year gap, and then he came back. Oh, I was pumped. I said, oh snap. But yeah, there's so many genres. Like if you know there's something you love, like you watch, like people think like I remember I was watching this one documentary and it was about like black horror. Like, and I was like, there was a whole historical era of Black horror films. Like you take like Candyman, I'm trying to think. I think there was one movie with Snoop Dogg. He was playing as this vampire. I forgot who it was. I think his love interest was like Pam Grier or something. I can't even remember. Something like that. It was just like there was a whole genre specifically for that. Like people don't understand that. Like you got to determine what's your niche. Like what type of stories do you like telling? Once you figure that out, then you can move forward with how you can go about doing those things. And I already kind of went into this deal about cameras and stuff like that. But start small. Start small. Start making 1 minute. Start making 1 minute, start making 30 seconds, and start making 30-second to a minute projects. Once you start getting comfortable with that, stretch it out, make it 2, go to 5. When you really start, but also you do have to learn what you're doing. You have to know what you're doing too. Every project you make is not going to be a great project. Everything, again, I'll say it's a marathon, not a sprint. Do not expect your first project to be a blockbuster hit. It's not. I promise you this. It's not going to be a hit. It's not. It could be. It necessarily doesn't be terrible, but it's not going to be a hit. But you got to keep working at it. You got to keep learning what you take every experience and realize what you could do better for the next time around. When I made Focus, I was like, I probably could have did this. I probably maybe could have ended it better. I probably could have did this. But I mean, those are things you take on to the next project. And then from that, don't ever expect any project to be 100% perfect. You can love it, but there's always room for improvement. Never stop growing because there's so much to learn in this industry and there's so much more that you can accomplish. And then also the biggest thing is don't think about the end goal is I'm trying to get money by being a filmmaker. No, you be focused on being a filmmaker and the money will come along. It will. That's facts. So
Yeah, I 100% thinking anything you do, always see what you can do better because there's always going to be something. Even if it gets all of this attention, there are ways where you can just be even better in a way that's healthy. You know what I'm saying? And just something where you like, dude, next time I do that, I can take it to this level. But I totally want to tap in on the Black horrors. Please, somebody save us. Like we have Jordan Peele. I think that's his name. We have Jordan Peele. Love it. But somebody else also like let's really change this thing because I love horror and I would love to see people who look like me continue to act in those movies because Black people can get scared too. Okay. So help us out, y'all, in that area. But it's been great having you on this podcast. I mean, I think you have the way you talk about film is a very practical, definitely comes from a humble space. I don't feel like you are a person who, if I come to you, I would be like somebody would be like super snooty towards me, but just open to be like, here are some practical things. Here are some of the harder truths, but like, it is what it is. And here are some ways to get started. So which is the whole point of this podcast. So we're very thankful to have a voice like yours on. So before we end, I just want to hit you with this final question. What can we expect to see from you next? Or do you have anything you're working on right now, even if it's just an idea?
I'm a big person on not revealing my next moves, but I will give a little sneak peek on what I got going on. So currently right now, I'm in the early drafts of creating another short. It's gonna be, I actually had two ideas for a short. One of them I kind of really wanted to kind of touch in the realms of like sci-fi, but kind of have a little bit of like a romantic romantic drama. There we go. Into it. Kind of like it's like kind of like 4 genres. It's like sci-fi, drama, romantic, and a little bit of tragedy in it. But I kind of really wanted to get into the depths of social media and how it impacts relationships. I feel like nobody really likes to be transparent about how that impacts their relationship and how it impacts those people that's going through those things. And I kind of want to I kind of want to do that based off like I said, it's a personal story that I can relate to in some ways that I can experience from my perspective on how those things kind of transpired in my life. That's just an idea. That's just an idea. It's not necessarily exactly finalized, but I think the next one I wanted to do, and I actually thought about this. This has been something I thought about for the longest time. I really want to talk about. I have this hat, and it says adultish on it. And I used to always think about my life like, that was the originally fun fact. That was originally going to be the title of Focus, was going to be adultish, but I changed it from that to Focus because I think I don't know, it felt right at the time. But my next one I really want to talk about. So I'm going through a bit of a transitional period in my life. I'm moving out actually from my parents' house because I came home back in undergrad, but I'm moving into my own place. And it's a lot going on right now. Like I said, I'm working, I'm trying to work on projects. I got schoolwork I'm doing. I'm still trying to, still enjoy my life because I'm still human at the end of the day. Still gotta work us on self-care and stuff like that. But this world, like it's crazy. Like it's like a rodeo. It's a rodeo, honestly. Like it's just chaos. But it's kind of like more so like not necessarily the chaos like that's going on in the world, but more so internal chaos. Not in a bad sense, but it's kind of like, kind of taken from the sense like this symbolism how I see from it. It's kind of like, you go to rodeos, you see this cowboy, he's riding on this wild animal, and like that wild animal literally is like the similarities of life. Like it's always something. Like this cowboy's trying to hold on for 10 seconds, but those 10 seconds might feel like 10 minutes. But like that just shows like how so much stuff is going on. All you're trying to do is you're just trying to you're trying to keep yourself up. You're trying to hold on for dear life. And that's what like everything is going on in the world. Like I said, pandemic, social injustice, a lot of different things going on, climate change, a lot of stuff. We're all just trying to hold on and still trying to get a reason to keep going every day. You know what I'm saying? And that's just the internal stuff that people deal with. But I don't know. I had 2 ideas for some shorts that I want to work on, and I want to actually really move forward with by the end of the year. So I actually want to start writing these scripts and then figure out which one I can go forward with, and then go from there. So that's what I have going on, guys. Shooting wise, I think the next thing I'm gonna do is I love just making like random videos. So I think there's a carnival in my town, so I'm probably gonna go out there. I already went out there, but I'm gonna go back. I'm gonna take my little Osmo Pocket camera, and I'm gonna go out there and go get some footage. I'm gonna put something together and make it dope. So that's next. If you guys want to see that, you guys can follow me on Instagram at 4K Malcolm, 4K underscore Malcolm. And on Twitter, it's 4K underscore Malcolm as well. I have a YouTube channel. I actually restarted my YouTube, but honestly, I'm probably gonna take more of the Instagram route than the YouTube route, personally, because I just feel like I like Instagram more than I like YouTube. I feel like with YouTube, I don't believe in, I don't have an issue working towards something, but I feel like Instagram, it's a lot more easier for things to be seen to people versus YouTube. It's like YouTube is a full-time job. But yeah, that's how I hope you guys, like I said, love everything I see. At the end of the day, I just want to create content that adds value to your life, something that you can feel that you can relate to, something that's personal, and something that you can also enjoy at the same time too. So that's honestly like what I'm trying to do and be as a filmmaker. So not just trying to be somebody out here that's just making stuff just to make it. Like I'm trying to be intentional with what I do. So yeah.
I love how you dropped the plug for your own stuff, so I didn't even have to do it. He gave y'all his social media so that you could keep up with it. I love that you also take opportunities like the carnival in your hometown to just go and shoot. I think that's something our listeners who want to be filmmakers or are filmmakers should take note. It doesn't always have to be this deep thing, but just looking for opportunities to get some B-roll, get some shots, and see what type of stories you can tell with that. So I think Malcolm, you have given us a wealth of information. As I feel like I say that on every episode. I'm like, thank you for this wealth of information that I really hope inspires our listeners to just really move forward. I know sometimes you all look around and you see everybody's a filmmaker, everybody's doing it, but one thing Malcolm said is it's just about your purpose. It's about the stories you're going to tell. It's about the communities you're going to uplift and change. It's about the power and empowerment that you're going to give to a specific group of people who have an ear for your voice. And that's something that you should keep in mind as you move forward. Please check out Malcolm's content support. He said he's mainly on Instagram. He does have YouTube, so go subscribe, but he's mainly on Instagram. We would love it if you guys would go over and like his stuff, share with your friends and your family. And also we will have some of Malcolm's stuff up shortly on our YouTube page, which is Art of Me Productions on YouTube. And then also check out our social media because we're on a couple platforms too. We recently are on TikTok at artofme.org. And we are also able to be connected with on our socials on Instagram and Facebook at artofme.org, and our website, www.artofme.org. If you like this episode, please rate it, review it, and subscribe and share with your friends and family because it really helps us out. Again, thank you so much for being on the podcast, Malcolm. It's been a joy. And everyone, I will see you on the next episode. Bye.